Justina's health was fine. In fact, she did a number of figure skating shows. The child was healthy, thriving, and in 13 months, her health has gone to near death.
There's no muscles left in her neck.
Now she's in a wheelchair, paralyzed below the hips.
Her legs are blown up like balloons.
I definitely feel these doctors are playing God with my daughter. The fact that they are continuing to abuse her medically and psychologically, that Boston Children's is doing that, is mind-boggling.
Okay, Lou, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Because this needs to be talked about. Now, the gag order has been lifted.
Yes, it has been lifted.
All right, and you've chosen here to come and talk about this. Why here, why now?
If there was ever a person to talk about the abuse of psychological over medical, it's going to be Dr. Phil.
Well, I'm glad that you did. Let me start with this. What happened the night that you were escorted from the hospital? What triggered you and your wife being escorted out of the hospital by security? Why did someone do that?
We arrived at the hospital February 10th because we went to Boston Children's for one reason only. Her stomach doctor, one of the world expert leaders on GI motility, had left Tufts to go to Boston Children's.
You went there to follow him there?
Follow him. But when we got to the emergency room, and a young neurologist came along and said, what she has, there's no such thing as mitochondrial disease. And we're just going to try a new approach. So for the first couple of days, we said, sure, we're game. We'll try anything if it's going to help get her better. But Wednesday, February 13th, that's when the world changed. And they said, we're going to stop all our medications. We're not going to be doing any more diagnosing. We're not going to be speaking to any other doctors, including her Tufts doctors. And I said, time out. So the next day, February 14th, Valentine's Day, I went up there with my other daughter, who has mito, and we went to discharge her. And they hemmed and hawed. We were at the main nursing station. And I could see out of each corner of my eye, security guards here, there, everywhere. So I said, this is smelling bad. So I actually called the Boston police, 911, and said, Boston Children's Hospital is about to kidnap my daughter. So they came in. We get brought into a little room with a young neurologist and the young psychologist say, we have decided to call the Department of Children and Families because we feel you're risking your daughter's safety by not following our protocol, which is what your daughter has is not medical, it's psychological.
At that point, then you are escorted from the building.
We are given by a number of security guards. They escort my wife and my daughter out of the building, and we're given a no trespass. If we ever show up on the property again unauthorized, we will be arrested.
Mitochondrial disease is 100% real. Justina and I both share the same illness. I was the one first diagnosed with it. It affects every part of your body. Hearing the doctors at Boston Children's Hospital say that mitochondrial disease is non-existent makes me so angry.
They should not have power to take a child away because two hospitals disagree in a diagnosis. Get a second opinion if you don't believe what the other hospital said.
My sister is deteriorating before my eyes. I know on one occasion, Justina was actually put into a walking harness device to force her to walk. She's fallen over.
She's losing her hair. It's caused by stress.
Because Boston Children's has taken Justina off her medicine, she looks horrible. If you see the before and after pictures of her, she looks nowhere near like she did before.
This entire situation is beyond criminal.
Well, Jennifer and Jessica are here today. Their other sister, Julia, could not attend. Okay, so y'all are adults. You live on your own, make your own decisions. You grew up in this household. Are your parents a danger to your sister?
None whatsoever. I come from a loving family. We were all very supportive of each other, and this is just crazy.
What do you think's going on here?
They're tearing our family apart. I don't understand how this is still going on. Everything we've done has been medically proven, verified, doctor's orders, and it's disgusting. This needs to stop, and we need to get her home and get her the treatment she desperately needs.
How's your sister doing now compared to when she was taken away?
Before we took her, she was in ice skating shows, as you see. Now, she is paralyzed. She can't even stand up.
Dr. Sophie, we have blood relatives that are adults. If you're saying that, okay, we can't give custody and allow the right of the parents to dictate medical care, then why not place her with a family member?
Because they're using their power. But there's no real found evidence of any malpractice on your side of you medicating her, taking her medicines. There's no history of that. Did they interview you guys at all, DCFS?
Mass DCF, and this is important,
Yeah.
never came to our house.
They
Ever.
never interviewed you and your wife?
Never came.
Never interviewed either
No.
of you two?
Not even on the phone?
No.
First off, is mitochondrial disease a real disease?
Mitochondria truly are the power plant of every cell in your body except for your red blood cells. So you take the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe in, and the mitochondria make the energy that your cell uses to do whatever it has to do. Because if you think about it, mitochondria are in every major organ. So you can have neurologic problems, you can have gastrointestinal problems, you can have muscle weakness, and some people severe even paralysis. It can affect virtually every system in your body, and that's why it is so confusing. That's why there can be disagreement amongst medical experts.
Now, you filed a writ of habeas corpus to get her released, right?
Last summer.
The psychologist testified that she has this somatoform disorder, correct?
Yes.
A neurologist from Children's Hospital testified that no, she had conversion disorder.
Yes.
So they're disagreeing with themselves?
Absolutely.
Would either of those constitute hospitalization ordinarily?
No.
The psychologist, who I've not met, so I have no opinion about her competencies whatsoever, is she doing a research program on somatoform disorder?
She has written 4 papers that we know of on somatoform research, including one paper that said 50% of all pediatric patients have somatoform.
I've always said, no matter how flat you make a pancake, it's got 2 sides. So I'm sure there is another side to this story that they would tell. Now, the director of the Christian Defense Coalition, Reverend Patrick Mahoney, was in the courtroom when Justina Pelletier's mother, Linda, fainted. He says he caught her before she was eventually placed on a stretcher and taken to the hospital. Here is his connection to this story.
For 13 months, the Pelletiers have been living a nightmare. Their loving daughter ripped from them. Seeing a girl who was ice skating 13 months ago and now can't even walk. I have never heard of a family following medical protocol and having their child taken from them because they were following what the doctors told them to do. Justina Pelletier is being treated like a piece of property. There is no question that the rights of Justina and her family have been violated. Justina needs to be reunited with her family now.
Well, Reverend Mahoney is here. What's going on here?
One of the problems we have with this is it's easier for us and safer for us to believe that the parents did something wrong. And the alternative is that the government moved in with impunity in front of everyone and removed this child from a loving home. But that's exactly what happened.
You know as well as I do that it is good public policy for children to remain with their biological parents.
Absolutely.
That is good public policy.
Yeah.
But we also know that there are pathological family units.
Of course.
And I've always said when you come to child abuse, you have to do a false positive situation. Instead of innocent until proven guilty, you have to assume something's wrong until you prove it isn't. In this situation, I would speculate that the hospital would say, look, these parents are keeping this girl sick. These parents are enabling her. They're rewarding her for sick behavior. They're taking her to doctors. They're coaching her. They're pressuring the doctors. And they're cutting this little girl up. She's had surgeries. Then she had another surgery. And we can't stand by and let that happen anymore. Okay, let's assume that's right. Then wouldn't there be an investigation? Wouldn't there be a finding of fact and a finding of law? Would they have not, Dr. Sophie, had to interview the parents and the family members collaterals to the situation to determine whether or not someone, after a 25-minute interview, had made a right decision?
Absolutely. They should have called Connecticut DCFS to go investigate your home.
Let's assume, for argument's sake, that they are correct. Then wouldn't they intervene, require therapy, do something to prepare this family for reunification?
You're right, Dr. Phil. You would say, all right, let's accept this argument to be true. Then how do we get counseling to bring the family together?
Where's
How
the
do we
reunification plan?
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying. If it's true, where's the reunification plan?
Dr. Phil, can you get on a plane and come to Boston with us? We'll all chip in and get your ticket. Come on, we're begging you.